The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I've acknowledged I have made my own mistakes, and I have owned up to them publicly and under oath. But silence and complicity in the face of the daily destruction of our basic norms and civility to one another will not be one of them. I did things and I acted improperly, at times at Mr. Trump's behest. I blindly followed his demands. My loyalty to Mr. Trump has cost me everything. My family's happiness, friendships, my law license, my company, my livelihood, my honor, my reputation, and soon my freedom. And I will not sit back, say nothing, and allow him to do the same to the country. Indeed, given my experience working for Mr. Trump, I fear that if he loses the election in 2020, that there will never be a peaceful transition of power. And this is why I agreed to appear before you today.
Oh boy. Oh boy. But how about that Kentucky Derby, everybody? That was really weird. I always watch that. And, you do have people, wearing flower pots on their head, betting like, degenerate gamblers on ponies. And then, a guy has a baby horse. This is what he said. I had a baby horse. And the baby horse was forced to run on a messy track. And the baby horse got out of his lane. And then the horse that came in about an hour later in second place is now the winner of the Kentucky Derby. Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? So, I bet $2 and I've now become a millionaire because the odds on Country House were 65 to 1. So bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye. I'll see you. I'm leaving the country. Don't I wish? Oh, don't I wish? That was really amazing, I have to say. It's like the stewards is what they call them, the judges. The stewards took longer than the race did. And then Trump had a tweet about it because, the whole world revolves around Donald Trump's Twitter feed. Isn't that fun? Isn't that great? Meanwhile, Facebook is, its own little island, and some people got voted off. I wonder what you think about that. There are certain people that Facebook doesn't want anymore, and they're banning them, is what they're doing. And some of them are, purveyors of violence, others purveyors of conspiracy theories, others of them purveyors of anti-Semitism and sentiment that causes violence and racism to explode in this country. But only now, Facebook is going to purge itself of certain purveyors of hatred. Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? So now what you have is a bunch of, kids, I swear to God, kids in hoodies sitting in, Silicon Valley, asking the HAL 4000, whether or not they should ban somebody. And HAL runs the algorithm and says, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't open the pod bay doors. Sorry. Can't do it. And the pod bay doors just closed. I just wonder, who's next and why. And it's interesting. It's just a strange situation to be in. Because, look, just so you know, if you're going to comment on it, the only guarantor of free speech is the government. And Facebook is not the government. And we know that because Facebook helped Russia, and we don't see them, in the Mueller report, do we? Hell no. All right, so here's where we are. We have a very interesting situation where Michael Cohen has gone to Otisville. He's gone to a prison that has 120 inmates. One of them is the Situation. From Jersey Shore. This is who his cellie is going to be. I mean, this is not Orange is the New Black. It's just not that. This is not that. This is, an upstate camp, minimum security prison with, no fencing. I guess Maggie Haberman will just camp out and interview him, like on Sundays or something. He does have a chance to be furloughed and sent home when he feels like he misses his wife or his children have some sort of an occasion. He would be furloughed. He would be allowed to attend, and he gets kosher meals if he so desires. There is a menu you can order off of. I swear to God, it does feature one of my favorite things that everybody grosses when I eat. But I happen to love a gefilte fish. I love a gefilte. I love a fish, and a gefilte fish is a combination of something. I have no idea what it is. It's minced fish held together in a jelly that looks like a brain. It looks like brain matter. It looks like goo. And man, you stick a fork into that jar and it makes this sound, like an armpit sound, like when you were in 4th grade, you know, that fun armpit sound? Yeah, it goes like that. It goes, and then you eat it off of the fork. Fish on a stick, everybody. Fish on a stick. Learn to love it. But yeah, he's going to a kosher prison. I mean, this is just insane. And I don't know how long he'll be there, but that said, he's the only one who's going away anywhere, and Trump is an unindicted co-conspirator in that case. In that one. So this is a very strange day to watch Michael Cohen, take some sort of an SUV to upstate New York. It looked like he was going to the Berkshires, you know what I mean? It's like Friday night, gotta go, fam and all that, bring the dogs, let's go. I mean, really. And he just said, I look forward to a time when I'm out, and hopefully when I'm out, we won't have a liar at the helm.
I hope that when I rejoin my family and friends, that the country will be in a place without xenophobia, injustice, and lies at the helm of our country. There still remains much to be told, and I look forward to the day that I can share the truth. And thank you all very much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. See you in Attica. Attica. It's like Henry Hill, except Henry Hill took a handful of pills and said, now take me to prison. But he went to prison. Although he went to Goodfellow prison, which is, like a whole group of cells where you could get lobster delivery. Now, of course, we don't have lobster delivery in Otisville because, shellfish and Leviticus and all that. No, seriously, this is just unbelievable. So Michael Cohen has gone to, a minimum security prison for, various crimes. And Donald Trump, in that same case, the president of the United States currently, in the same case, is an unindicted co-conspirator. Ain't America great? Wow. We've made America great again. We have. We've made America great again, where white-collar crime gets you sent upstate New York to the mountains, for a couple of months. I know it's supposed to be 3 years. I doubt it. Okay, do you? You think he'll be there for 3 years? Yeah. And Donald Trump is I just can't say that I can't say that enough, because with all the coverage this morning of Michael Cohen leaving and Michael Cohen saying, now take me to prison, nobody mentioned that Donald Trump ought to be in that SUV alongside. Now, I have been reading since Friday. There are all these, op-ed pieces and lawyer pieces and lawfare and above the law, and everybody who is just shocked at this. I mean, just sickened by it. That the president of the United States can't be indicted according to a rule. It's not even a law. It's a rule. A rule that they invented to protect Bush. To protect Bush, who was going to do criminal things, like start wars with our own countries, which we might be on the verge of now. We just might be. We moved a whole carrier group right off the coast of Iran over there. And, you do have the Elliot Abrams of the world working in Venezuela. And you do have the John Boltons working, on the Iranian wet dream of bomb Iran. And then, of course, you have the president wanting to be a wartime president so that he could, get reelected, because he can't give up the presidency, because if he does, he will be in an SUV going somewhere secure. You know what I mean? Perhaps allowed the occasional visit home. I doubt it. But all of these legal scholars have been writing furiously about how wrong all this is. And just today, 370 former federal prosecutors signed on to a letter saying that but for that OLC rule, Trump would have been in that SUV.
all things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Mr. Trump is a racist.
Yes.
The country has seen Mr. Trump court white supremacists and bigots. You have heard him call poorer countries shitholes. In private, he is even worse. He once asked me if I could name a country run by a black person that wasn't a shithole.
Oh, my God.
This was when Barack Obama was president of the United States. And while we were once driving through a struggling neighborhood in Chicago, he commented that only black people could live that way. And he told me that black people would never vote for him because they were too stupid. And yet, I continued to work for him.
Great. You must be very proud of your life and where it's gone. The I can't say that. The direction.
Trajectory.
The direction. That it's taken. Yeah, I mean, I've never heard so much cursing in Congress. Have you?
Trump is a f***ing idiot.
That was my favorite one. But have you heard that much cursing? Since Donald Trump has become president, cursing is like, okay, everywhere except on the airwaves. I don't understand what this is. I mean, I'm so freaking lost by this whole presidency. And you know what? The Constitution is so lost in this presidency. Now, you know, before I show you this letter that has been signed off by multiple hundreds, like 370. Oh my God, ex prosecutors, federal prosecutors, okay, who have worked for Republicans. 29 of the 370 worked under Donald Trump in the justice system. I mean, this is crazy. 29 of the signatories to this letter that I will show you signed a letter saying that but for this stupid rule that I have been railing against since 2000 that says that the President of the United States is above the law. The President of the United States cannot be indicted even if he rapes somebody live on television in Congress on a Sunday. Now, seriously, think about that. Okay, you cannot indict a sitting president because, and this is their reason, it would get in the way of his governing. Holy crap, man. Well, 29 of the signatories to this letter said that but for this stupid rule, which is not a law, it's just a rule, Trump would have been indicted and he would have been in that SUV with Michael Cohen. 100 of these federal prosecutors worked more than 20 years in the Justice Department. 370 of them total worked in the Justice Department, and they agree that the evidence presented in the Mueller report satisfied all elements for a felony obstruction of justice charge, and that he should be indicted. It's unbelievable. It's just, this is an amazing thing. And here we are today staring at the House of Representatives, poor House of Representatives. Oh, my God. One solitary house, one part of a bicameral legislative branch, one half of a legislative branch of government is willing to stand up and charge Bill Barr with contempt of Congress for not meeting the deadlines that they have set for his testimony, for an unredacted version of the Mueller report. Mnuchin is going to violate. We'll know later today what they are going to do about Mnuchin. I mean, the black letter law there is super clear. It says that if the House Ways and Means Committee chair requests the tax returns of the president, they shall furnish them. That's not even something you need to go to law school to understand. Shall furnish. It's not may furnish. It's not if they're in the mood. It's not if they dyed their hair 9 shades of blonde and nobody noticed. Just saying. I had brown hair on Friday. I now have sunny, summery blonde hair, and no one noticed. I feel invisible. Good thing I'm on the radio. Oh, that's right. There's cameras in my face. Do you see how nice and blonde it is? Yeah, no one noticed. At least Howard had the decency, Scott, to buy me a potted plant to apologize for not noticing, even though I sat there and I kept going like this. He's like, what? Is there something on your face? What? Okay, I sat there for 2 hours and I dyed my hair a completely different color and you didn't notice. Yeah, well, I'm used to you. But 370 have said that this man is a criminal. The Michael Cohen case has Donald Trump as an unindicted co-conspirator. Mnuchin is refusing to turn over his tax returns, although the law requires that he does. We will have no testimony from Don McGahn on any issue that we care about, whether or not he tried to continually fire Bob Mueller, or even more important, giving the clearances to his children after they were disqualified from receiving clearances. I mean, this is it's so in your face. And the problem is that any legal remedy available to the House of Representatives has to go through Bill Barr and the Justice Department. Oh my freaking God. So there's really not a damn thing we can do to hold them accountable, except, you can charge him with contempt and you could get the sergeant at arms to go arrest him. Now, that Trump would pardon him immediately, but at least we would know that somebody was standing on that wall and protecting democracy as it was taken down, written down, as it was signed off on when the founding fathers created 3 co-equal branches of government to hold each one accountable to the other. That would be a good thing. And, I mean, listen, this is what I want to see happen. And I know that Nancy is going to say no, because the Nancys and the Bidens, they're remembering a more cordial time in America. They remember a time when Democrats and Republicans could disagree, but then agree to disagree and sign some legislation, important legislation, that actually made a difference in people's lives, like an increase in the federal minimum wage, or a creation of Medicare, or a creation of a Social Security trust fund. But it hasn't been that country for a really, really long time. We now have a unitary executive. We don't have a Republican Party anymore. Somebody has to wake up poor Joe, poor Uncle Joe. Somebody's got to shake him into reality and tell him there is no Republican Party. There's only a Trump Party. There is no Republican platform. There's just Trumpism. Mitch McConnell has gone off the reservation, and he left when Obama was elected president because he couldn't stand the thought of having a black president put a man on the Supreme Court. And Joe is out there trying to tell us he's the most electable because the moderates, who don't exist anymore, trust him to reach across the aisle and do business with a Mitch McConnell who didn't do any business with Joe Biden's president the whole time he was vice president. This blows my mind, this scenario we're in. I don't know what to think.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
He refuses to testify before the House. Now, there is some negotiation going on. Maybe he will testify before the House. But there is an old precedent in this country under the Constitution of the United States, affirmed by the Supreme Court, that says that the House and the Senate, each chamber, has an inherent power to compel a witness to testify if that witness just refuses. And that includes arrest, and even includes jail. And we forget that because it's been such a long time. It's been 34 since that happened. But it's there, and the Supreme Court has affirmed that authority. And the reason I put that out there is because, and that was even before Nancy Pelosi said what she said today, because we really have to think of this in terms of a constitutional crisis. this.
Yes.
If the president and the administration are stonewalling and they say there will be absolutely no information, no testimony, no report, no Mueller report that goes to the House, then the House is powerless unless the House takes some action.
It's true. And that's where we are. And the only thing that is in our arsenal that is doable, even though it would be reversed, is to send Bill Barr, the sergeant at arms, and to videotape it as we place him under arrest and bring him probably to the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. I'm not kidding. Because there used to be a Capitol jail, but they tell us that there isn't one. Then they tell us, well, maybe there is one in the basement of the I don't know. Because I've seen reports about the Capitol jail, but I don't know if it's still there.
When Karl Rove refused to testify before a House committee last month, Democrats in Congress started thinking creatively.
The claim of executive privilege is really not a valid one.
And Congressman, I just want to clarify, there is a jail in the U.S. Capitol. You want Karl Rove in that jail.
A jail in the U.S. Capitol? Has the Congress ever done that?
It would actually arrest people, try them, and even jail them in the Capitol.
Constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley says the House has the little-known authority to put administration officials on trial when they fail to testify. The charge? Contempt of Congress.
Right.
The defendant is brought forth by the Sergeant of Arms. Now, in the case of Mr. Rove, it shouldn't be difficult. He's a consultant with Fox News a block away from the House floor.
As for that jail,
the great majority of people who tour the Capitol building never see this area.
We went deep into the bowels of the Capitol with Senate historian Don Ritchie. The closest thing to a jail, Washington's tomb, an area once considered, then rejected as a final resting spot for the first president.
A lot of people who've seen it have assumed, well, this must be the Capitol jail.
But it's not the Capitol jail.
No, it's never been used as a Capitol jail.
Well, let's use it as the Capitol jail. It looks like a jail. Did you see that? It's got bars on it, and it looks like a jail. Let's use it. Let's use it. They had designated it to be George Washington's final resting place. It was rejected, so now it's empty. It's available. Put him there. Put him there. Seriously, we are in big trouble. We are in huge trouble. This is what the statement by the former federal prosecutors says. Okay, this is unbelievable. You've got, like I said, 370 former federal prosecutors signing on to this letter. 29 worked for Donald Trump. 100 more have worked in the Justice Department for over 20 years. They say, we are former federal prosecutors. We served under both Republican and Democratic administrations at different levels in the federal system: line attorneys, supervisors, special prosecutors, U.S. attorneys, senior officials at the Department of Justice. The offices in which we served were small, medium, and large, urban, suburban, and rural, and located in all parts of the country. Each of us believes that the conduct of President Trump described in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report would, in the case of any other person not covered by the Office of Legal Counsel policy against indicting a sitting president, results in multiple felony charges for obstruction of justice. The Mueller report describes several acts that satisfy all of the elements for an obstruction charge: conduct that obstructed or attempted to obstruct the truth-finding process, as to which the evidence of corrupt intent and connection to pending proceedings is overwhelming. These include the president's efforts to fire Mueller and to falsify evidence about that effort. That would be asking Don McGahn to put a fake letter in the file saying he never asked Don McGahn to fire Bob Mueller. The president's efforts to limit the scope of the Mueller investigation to exclude his conduct, and the president's efforts to prevent witnesses from cooperating with investigators probing his campaign. And they say everything from dangling pardons in Twitters to Rudy Giuliani writing to Michael Cohen, you have friends in high places, just stay quiet, right? He said, despite being advised by then White House counsel Don McGahn that he could face legal jeopardy for doing so, Trump directed McGahn on multiple occasions to fire Mueller or to gin up false conflicts of interest as a pretext for getting rid of the special counsel. When these acts began to come into public view, Trump made, quote, repeated efforts to have McGahn deny the story, going so far as to tell McGahn to write a letter for our files, falsely denying that Trump had directed Mueller's termination. Firing Mueller would have seriously impeded the investigation of the president and his associates, obstruction in its most literal sense. Directing the creation of false government records in order to prevent or discredit truthful testimony is similarly unlawful. The special counsel's report states, quote, substantial evidence indicates that in repeatedly urging McGahn to dispute the fact that he was ordered to have the special counsel terminated, the president acted for the purpose of influencing McGahn's account in order to deflect or prevent scrutiny of the president's conduct toward the investigation. And then they go on to list, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the report describes multiple efforts by the president to curtail the scope of the investigation. And then they go on to a third section about witness tampering and intimidation and how they tried to influence the decisions of both Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort with regard to cooperating with the investigation. And he said they list some of the efforts at intimidation, the dangling of pardons done in plain sight via tweets and public statements, other behavior such as private messages through private attorneys, such as Rudy Giuliani's message to Cohen's lawyer that Cohen should, quote, sleep well tonight. You have friends in high places. And they say this is not just potential obstruction. It's well within the purview of normal prosecutorial judgment to also charge other acts detailed in this report. And they say these are not matters of close personal judgment. They say, but for the OLC memo, the overwhelming weight of professional judgment comes down in favor of prosecution for the conduct outlined in the Mueller report. And then they invite other former federal prosecutors to add their names via a link below. I mean, this is crazy. This is nuts. We have a criminal administration. We have a guy who is clearly an unindicted co-conspirator, and the only one who has paid for this is Michael Cohen and, of course, Paul Manafort. What?
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
The challenge we face is that if we don't stand up to him together today, we risk forever losing the power to stand up to any president in the future. The very system of government of the United States, the system of limited power, the system of not having a president as a dictator is very much at stake.
Oh, my God.
The Attorney General of the United States is sworn to uphold the Constitution as our nation's chief law enforcement officer. He has an obligation to do everything in his power to warn the president of the damage he risks and the liability he assumes by directly threatening our system of checks and balances and of limited government. Sadly, the Attorney General has failed in that responsibility. He has failed to check the president's worst instincts. He has not only misrepresented the findings of the special counsel, he has failed to protect the special counsel's investigation from unfair political attacks. He has himself unfairly attacked the special counsel's investigation. He has failed the men and women of the Department of Justice by placing the needs of the president over the fair administration of justice. He has even failed to show up today. Yes, we will continue to negotiate for access to the full report for another couple of days. And yes, we will have no choice but to move quickly to hold the Attorney General in contempt if he stalls or fails to negotiate in good faith.
So today was the deadline for the Attorney General to turn over the unredacted Mueller report. And, of course, that happened last week where he said he would give him another couple of days to, A, see if he would comply with the deadline today, which he did not, be to negotiate an appearance before the House of Representatives and especially the Judiciary Committee, which he has, Bill Barr has said no, he doesn't feel like it. And now over the weekend, the president has indicated that he will not let Bob Mueller testify. He doesn't want Don McGahn to testify. He's done. Everybody's done, and nobody cares to have any testimony from Don McGahn, to have any testimony from Bill Barr regarding the president being a criminal, regarding the president committing numerous felonies. And we know that the legal community, the federal prosecution community of litigators, prosecutors, attorney generals, have all signed on to this letter, 370 of them, saying your president is a criminal. He would have been charged with felonies, but for a stupid rule that just exists somewhere in the bowels of the Office of Legal Counsel inside the Justice Department that was created under the unitary executive notion that was, literally just thrust upon us by the Bush administration, by Dick Cheney, by Addington, by John Yoo, and the author of the torture memo, by a desire to have a president who can gut Congress. But, okay, we understand that we've bypassed Congress on the declaration of war since the Vietnam War. We understand that. That's just bizarro world. But now we don't want Congress to have any power whatsoever to check the president's lawless behavior. We don't want to give Congress the ability to spend money. Right? That's what his stupid emergency powers that he gave himself allows him to do. He can take money from the defense. He can take money from, anything that he wants and spend it at the border and spend it on a stupid wall. Emergency powers. Because they hate Congress. And I've told you a million times that when you're slouching toward autocracy or oligarchy or dictatorship or fascism, whatever you want to call a unitary executive, without Congress, without the Constitution of the United States in place, whatever you want to call that, you first need to pack the courts, and then you need to take away Congress's power. That is what fascists do. That is what every fascist in the history of fascism has done, and that is what this president is doing. And, that's why you have all these prosecutors signing on to this letter saying that they strongly believe that but for this bogus protection that is given a lawless criminal president through this OLC memo, the overwhelming weight of professional judgment would come down in favor of prosecution for the conduct outlined in the Mueller report. That is where we're at. And we have a president who is desperately we're trying to hold him accountable for his lawlessness, and it doesn't seem to be possible because the Senate is gone. As you know, Mitch McConnell's been gone for a really long time. Mitch McConnell refused to allow Barack Obama to pick a Supreme Court justice. He refused. Why? Because they wanted to pack the courts with people that would, say corporations are people. People are not people. And your speech doesn't matter. What matters is money. And corporations use money to speak. And those are the voices we're responsive to. And those are the voices we hear. And we don't want to, mess around with the people anymore. The people are the proles. The people are, poor. We've succeeded in ruining their upward mobility. We've kept wages stagnant. The money that you make now buys the exact same thing as $4.30 an hour bought in 1970, and that's the way they like it. They keep on telling you, this is what a great economy looks like. Full employment. Well, that's what we have. We have full employment. But when you look at stagnant wages, when you look at the fact that your money now buys, just the same amount as $4.30 an hour did in 1970, when you look at the fact that, the wage increases have gone to the top 0.1%, not to you. When you look at the fact that America is in despair, and America is living in these ghost towns, and America is screaming as loud as it can, please help us. And this president pretends to talk to them, but then turns around and spends all the money on a stupid border wall and war. I mean, listen, you got battle groups going to Iran, battle groups going off North Korea now. You got trouble in Venezuela that he wants to get involved in. You got the Russians, acting a little nuts in the Arctic. The Norwegians, who are the NATO eyes and ears, they're saying our planes, we can't do a fight with the Russians. If the Russians come into our airspace, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. I mean, this is craziness. This is absolute madness. Now, you have conservatives writing op-eds all over the place saying, here's what you need to imagine, that you're living in a town and your town's taken over by gangsters, okay? And the mayor is a crook and the district attorney and the police chief are too. And the message to you is you can't fight City Hall. But at the same time, you think, well, maybe I could go to the state or maybe I could go to the feds. He says, now, imagine it's not a city that's corrupt. Imagine it's not your whole state that's corrupt. Imagine that it's your whole government that's been taken over by criminals, and that is where we're at. And no one knows where to turn for help. No one knows where to turn. You have a president who's an unindicted co-conspirator. The guy who was the other co-conspirator, the other co in the co-conspirator, went to jail today. He went to jail, and the president is sitting on TV, saying, no one can touch me. I could kill somebody on Fifth Avenue. No one can touch me, and the House knows it.
But the Attorney General must make a choice. Every one of us must make the same choice. That choice is now an obligation of our office. The choice is simple. We can stand up to this president in defense of the country and the Constitution and the liberty we love, or we can let the moment pass us by. I do not, and we have seen in other countries what happens when you allow such moments to pass by. I do not know what Attorney General Barr will choose. I do not know what my Republican colleagues will choose. But I am certain that there is no way forward for this country that does not include a reckoning with this clear and present danger to our constitutional order. History will judge us for how we face this challenge. We will all be held accountable in one way or the other. And if he does not provide this committee with the information it demands and the respect it deserves, Mr. Barr's moment of accountability will come soon enough.
So here's the thing. Wednesday, they're going to take the vote as to whether or not to hold him in contempt. And, they can hold him in contempt. Obviously, they voted to have Eric Holder held in contempt after Eric Holder had already testified, after Eric Holder had already given documents. They wanted more documents. So Republicans have no problem doing stuff like that. They just don't. But we're in this terrible position now where the administration of justice is it's non-existent. And that means the whole rule of law breaks down. That means that people who are guilty of crimes can actually argue that the Department of Justice isn't properly functioning, and all charges that they bring from now on against anybody could be legitimately argued in court to have been political and not to have been blind.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Trump is a f***ing idiot.
Did you address the election meddling issues that came up in the Mueller report with Mr. Putin today?
We discussed it. He actually sort of smiled when he said something to the effect that it started off as a mountain and it ended up being a mouse. But he knew that because he knew there was no collusion whatsoever. So pretty much that's what it was.
Did you tell him not to meddle, Mr. President? Did you tell him not to meddle in the next election?
Excuse me. I'm answering this question. You are very rude.
Oh, my God.
So we had a good conversation about many different things. Okay?
Did you ask him not to
medal in the next election?
We didn't discuss that. Really, we didn't discuss it. We discussed 5 or 6 things.
We have a president that refuses to defend or protect the United States of America from foreign interference in our elections. Isn't that fun? I mean, and a legal system that's been weaponized by Donald Trump's Roy Cohn. I mean, he finally found a thug. He found a guy who has absolutely no conscience, who has, no respect for the law, no respect for the Constitution, who will act instead of the, people's attorney general, will act as Donald Trump's protector, Donald Trump's lapdog, Donald Trump's, Roy Cohn. This is a very scary place to be. There's no question that we are in a constitutional crisis. And if anybody ever wondered what it would look like, this is what it looks like. And it just gets worse from here. Because when you weaponize the legal system, then all of the prosecutions against all of the criminals become untenable. Everyone who's ever done anything in the, to violate federal law can now point to the Attorney General's office and say, the Attorney General of the United States is a political person. He is not a fair administrator of blind justice. He is not a fair administrator of the law. And therefore, whatever prosecution I face at the hands of this federal department is, something I don't have to respect because it's not operating in any way that that respects the law itself. We've become a nation of men and not a nation of law. And you think about that. I mean, yes, we've always had a delicate touch with white-collar criminals. You could steal millions of dollars with a pen, but God help you if, you steal $70 from a 7-Eleven with a gun, right? You're gone, right? You're done. You're finished. It's you're going away. And if you don't have money for, representation, you'll go sit on Rikers Island waiting for your trial, which could be 5 years down the road. Whatever happened to justice delayed is justice denied. I have no idea. But this is incrementally how our system has been attacked and morphed into a system that is a weapon for the powerful against all of us. And it's been happening for a really long time, which is why people like me talk about justice reform and how it's necessary. And there's unfair justice. And now the very powerful, the very wealthy, they are in a beautiful position to violate the law over and over and over again and deny any prosecution is legitimate. You see what I'm talking about here? And you've got candidates now, and who are out there saying, I could get along with Republicans, and I don't want, I want you to understand that they're not our enemy, they're our friends, and I think Dick Cheney's a great guy, and he always treated me well, and therefore, we are out of our minds if we think that just because this president took us all the way off of the main road down some dirt freaking path that leads us nowhere, okay, that we need to move back to the center to find our way. No, we need to redo the whole system. It's broken. And Donald Trump, I've heard people say he's the symptom. Donald Trump isn't the symptom. Donald Trump is the culmination of all of this dirty, disgusting, malevolent, dark money. I mean, this is the actual purchasing of justice, the actual purchasing of law and order, the actual weaponization of our laws. This is not a symptom. This is the culmination. This is the only place it could lead. And by that, I mean to an authoritarian demagogue, to a fascist, to a guy who has absolutely no respect for anything. Not the law, not you, not women, not children, not anything. Not anything. Everything is on the table. Everything is within bounds. Everything is doable in his world for his self-enrichment, for his benefit. It's all okay. You heard Bill Barr testify that, and you've heard Rudy Giuliani say that there's no crime, no foul if a foreign government systemically and sweepingly hacks into our election systems. There's no harm, no foul, there's no crime there. And we know that there were, back in 2017, I think in September of 2017, we learned that 21 states' election systems were hacked into. But now we know all 50 states' election systems were hacked into, and nobody has looked at whether or not any votes were changed, because it's nobody's job to do that. It's just the state's job to do that, and nobody's done it. So stop telling yourself that there's a chance that Donald Trump's going to be held accountable, that there's a prayer. Mueller's report is out. Mueller is going to be, either prohibited from testifying or he'll have to testify in this manner. My report speaks for itself. I can't talk about that. It's protected 6E material. I can't talk about that. It's an ongoing investigation. You understand that? Bill Barr is playing the game. Bill Barr is saying today, I'm going to continue to negotiate with Gerald Nadler over my appearance and the release of an unredacted report. I'm going to continue to negotiate. And as long as he says that, the court will say, oh, okay, they're continuing to negotiate. And the example I gave you on Friday is the best example I can think of. I've tried to think of something even simpler, but this is about as simple as it gets. If you've ever been divorced and it had to go to court, meaning it wasn't a meeting of the minds and you guys didn't agree that she should get this plate and you should get that book, okay, and you had to go to court, you know that the court ordered you, and any civil suit at all, the court will order you to mediation or the court will order you to negotiate before you take up the court's time and ask the court to decide for you what to do. And that's why Bill Barr today is saying, I'll continue to negotiate, because as long as the court hears that, the court will not insert itself. And by the court, I mean any court. D.C. District Court, Civil Court, doesn't matter. Wherever they go, the court's going to say the same thing. Well, as long as there's some good faith negotiation going on, and just so you know, there's no such thing as good faith in legal terms. I know everybody thinks there is. You're wrong. There isn't. There's no definition of what good faith means. So people like to throw that into contracts. They like to throw that around. They like to pretend that there's some sort of definition of what is done in good faith and what is done in bad faith. No. These are just words, and they have no meaning in law. Just like collusion has no meaning in law. But systemic and sweeping intrusion into our elections has a meaning in law, but because everybody lied and because everybody destroyed documents, Bob Mueller said the investigation was materially impaired and he couldn't corroborate half of what's in that report because Manafort lied. And it's like he was like stunned by Paul Manafort, if you've read this thing, that somebody would have such a low disregard for the safety and security of his own country, that somebody would, wow, that was, Boy Scout Mueller never could, conceive that there would be bad people. Isn't that something? And so now they're going to sit there and they're going to play the victim and they're going to say, oh no, you need to investigate the investigators while we negotiate our appearances. It's just going to drag on and on and on and on.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Well, I think I have a very good relationship with some of the press, and unfortunately some of the press doesn't cover me accurately. In fact, they go out of their way to cover me inaccurately, so I don't think that's a free press. I think that's a dishonest press, and I want to see a free press. I mean, today I was happy to see on the front page of the New York Times for the first time where they were talking about spying, and they were talking about spying on my campaign. That's a big difference between the way they've been covering, but that's a big story. That's a story bigger than Watergate as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, my God.
So I want to see freedom of the press, and I get treated fairly by some press, but I get treated very unfairly by other press, and frankly, I think that's very dishonest, and I don't consider that. When you have stories that are purposely written badly, in many cases very much on purpose, I mean, you look at it, That's not free press. That's the opposite of free press.
You know, he's a very sick man. To sit there and listen to him opine about what is honest and what is dishonest is a joke. It's an absolute joke. And, you know, now I think I understood then, but I wonder if anybody remembers how he used to go to these campaign rallies and he would, talk about the snake. Let me in, dear woman. Oh, well, then the snake bites the woman. And he said, well, you knew who I was when you took me in. That is who he is. He was trying to tell you, I'm a snake. I am somebody that you don't want to let into the White House because I will destroy everything. I will poison it. And you did. You did. And to sit there and listen to him opine about what is honest and what is dishonest after he has told 10,000 documented lies it's a rare privilege, isn't it? It's a treat to be lectured to by the likes of him about honesty and forthrightness and what is, free press. And the story in the New York Times simply says that George Papadopoulos was running around telling everybody in Europe that the Russians had thousands of emails of Hillary Clinton's, and the Australians called our government and said, this guy, Trump just gave an interview to the New York Times and saying who his foreign policy team was. And this guy, George Papadopoulos, is on his foreign policy team. And it just struck me odd because I had met with him and he was sitting there telling us, the Australian ambassador and this guy from Malta, that the Russians had thousands of Hillary's emails. So they sent a woman over to a guy named Stephen Halper. Stephen Halper is he's a professor, but he also gives us intel information. And so they sent a woman over there to pose as Stephen Halper's assistant, and she apparently was asking Papadopoulos questions about, are you speaking to Russia? Do you have information about Russia? And he was very suspicious of her because she was speaking with a Turkish accent, and he didn't believe that her accent was real, and she was flirting with him or whatever. And so he thought something was up, and something was up. But he, that's what they did. Ooh, that's terrible. That's horrible. Oh, my God. And then he left the campaign. Now, Carter Page, here's a little detail on Carter Page's FISA warrant. Carter Page was also named as being part of Trump's foreign policy team, which seemed odd to people at the FBI because 3 people that Carter Page had business dealings with had all been convicted of spying against the United States, Russians. 2 of them couldn't be jailed because they're not in the United States, but one of them was. Now, Carter Page left the Trump campaign in September of 2016. That FISA warrant wasn't written or it didn't go to the court until October of 2016. So Carter Page was not part of the Trump campaign when they applied for and received a FISA warrant. And they did it because 3 people he had done business with had been convicted of being Russian spies. And he wasn't on the campaign. So there you have it. Now they're just going to become the ultimate victim. Oh, this is bigger than Watergate. Robert in Atlanta.
Oh, hey, Randy. You've been talking about Bill Barr all day, and certainly it is disturbing. And one thing that occurred to me that's even more disturbing is there are these 14 other investigations going on that nobody's really talking about.
Yep.
Who's to say he's not, sliding a knife into all of those?
Right. Exactly right.
Well, I don't know what can be done about it, but if you hear anything, please let us all know.
Well, I keep on gaming it out in my head. And, Robert, the place it always lands is everybody gets pardoned after a long period of time. And that's really going to be what happens at the end. But to hold anybody accountable anymore is beyond the capacity of Congress, because you have a House that is willing to take testimony, that is willing to do the hard work of oversight, and you have a Senate that just doesn't care.
Well, I guess so. I sort of have feelings about Nancy that we need a wartime conciliary.
Well, Nancy understands what happens. It ends at the Senate's edge. That's how she puts it. And so she understands that no matter what they do, it ends up with them getting off. She gets that. She gamed it out too. So what in the world are we supposed to do to hold them accountable if there is no place to hold them accountable? Where do you go for justice in this country anymore? And that's why it's a constitutional crisis.
Well, all I can say is they need to buy a podcast to keep more up to date on things.
Thank you. I appreciate that. John in Virginia.
Hello.
Hello.
I was almost falling asleep here.
I'm sorry.
I had one question that's been burning for the whole day. What if the Congress impeaches both Barr and Trump at the same time? What would happen?
Senate would let them go.
No. Yeah, but he wouldn't be able to pardon him.
Well, you don't need a pardon to be.
No. What I'm saying is
impeachment. Impeachment is just an indictment. That's what it is. And then
I know.
And then the trial happens in the Senate. And the Senate, A, probably would refuse to have a trial, and B, if they did, there's no way that they have 67 votes to remove either of them. So they would be let go.
I understand that part, but what the part I'm trying to get to is that how then would it look to the nation that both of these people are being impeached, and that hits the news every day? What then would happen?
Well, some people think that it would end up increasing support for Donald Trump, and other people think that the American people would freaking wake up to the fact that they have a criminal president. For me, I think politics ought to just take a back seat to upholding the constitutional, check and balance that is built in. I think the impeachment ought to go forward, but that's just me.
I agree with that, and that's why I think they should do both at the same time. That way, it would insulate Trump from pardoning Barr while the information is being collected.
Well, the president would still be the president even while he's being impeached, and but
wouldn't that be clear obstruction of justice? That would be clear for everybody to see.
I think everybody sees obstruction of justice.
I know, but this would be a little more clear.
Well, you couldn't impeach them for the same thing. You'd have to have two separate impeachments. There'd be two sets of articles, so.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. Congressman, the House Judiciary Committee, your committee, is reportedly in talks with Special Counsel Robert Mueller about testifying before your committee. In fact, has he agreed to testify, and has a date been set?
A tentative date has been set of May 15th, and we hope the special counsel will appear. We think the American people have a right to hear directly from him.
No, let me just interrupt because we're running out of time. When you say a tentative date has been set, has the special counsel agreed to that date?
Well, I think counsel for the special, or the representative of the special counsel has, but obviously until the date comes, we never have an absolute guarantee. The White House has so far indicated they would not interfere with Mr. Mueller's attempts to testify. We hope that won't change.
Yeah, and then the president said that he doesn't think Mueller should testify. So here we are in the middle of a constitutional crisis, and this is what it sounds like, looks like, and feels like. When you keep on gaming it out in your head, and you keep on saying, well, why don't we impeach him? Well, the president is still the president. Even if the president is impeached, he's still the president. Which means he has all the powers of the presidency, right? And the president could pardon anybody he wanted to pardon, and so impeachment doesn't solve any of your problems. The Senate, of course, would be the removal, the place to have the trial that would decide removal. And Mitch McConnell, A, isn't going to have a trial, and B, if he does, you got to have 67 votes, and they're not there. They're not there, which is why in 2020, we need a Democratic House, which we have, a Democratic Senate, which we have a good shot at, and a Democratic president who knows what to do with all of that power. And by that I mean get rid of the OLC designation that a president is above the law, make sure that we do justice reform in this country so that white-collar crime, where you steal millions of dollars, is worse than stealing $70 from a 7-Eleven because you're a degenerate drug addict and you can't get treatment. Everything is ass backwards in this country, and that's why people are just so desperate and living in such despair. This experiment of capitalism unchecked has gone off the rails. It produced Donald J. Trump. Bruno in New York.
Hey, Randy.
Hey.
Randy, let me just start from the outset here that I'm loath to disagree with you, and I'm going to ask you not to turn on me during the course of the conversation.
Okay.
But listen, Nancy Pelosi is doing exactly what Mueller did. Mueller punted, okay? Straight arrow, Boy Scout. He would not go beyond that Office of Legal Counsel letter.
Yeah.
Pelosi is now saying to all of us, well, if you don't come out in great numbers and vote for Democrat, it's going to be your fault that we don't take the Senate and we don't take the presidency. The impeachment hearing should go on, I'm not saying right now, so that the American people who watch a lot of television can actually see what's going on, because 3% of the American public have read Mueller's report.
I know, I saw it too over the weekend. It was very disheartening. But I think that is what she's doing. I think that, she is punting to the people. And I really do believe that she isn't. I think she's losing patience with this whole idea that Bill Barr will one day show up and be a just person. He's not. He's a dirty guy. He's
a lying degenerate, Randy.
Yeah, he is. He lied, and he'll lie some more. Yeah, and I think she's losing patience. So yes, I do believe Gerald Nadler, as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, ought to begin impeachment hearings so that it will be on television all the time, and everyone can hear Bob Mueller testify. Everyone could. Bill Barr has to show up. I mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the American people are entitled to know why 370 federal prosecutors have signed their name to a letter today saying that but for that ridiculous OLC rule, this president would have been indicted for the crimes, the felonies outlined in Mueller's report.
You know what? Think of the logic here. In other words, that the Office of Legal Counsel letter is suggesting that if Trump murdered his wife,
right?
Okay, they would not be able to do anything until he left office.
That's what they're saying.
So
yes.
Theoretically, you would have someone sitting in the White House who just killed somebody, but a letter, okay, a self-serving letter, is going to say this man is above the law.
Right. Yes. That's how ridiculous it is.
No, it's bizarre, and it's self-serving, and I think Mueller, good man, all of that, but didn't have the guts to say, that letter notwithstanding, I'm going to go forward and move for an indictment and then push the burden onto Trump, okay? But he did not do that, and I'm afraid, and I love Pelosi, she's a tough little Italian girl, but she is just not doing what really she should do. She's going to turn it on us. We need to come out in great numbers and get a Democratic Senate and a Democratic president. This man will destroy this country in the next 2 years. Period.
She also told the New York Times over the weekend that she didn't believe that Trump would leave peacefully. She also said it. That's why I opened the show with Michael Cohen saying it. Now she's saying it too. She's saying that if the 2018 election had been decided by a few hundred votes in each district, and they hadn't won, overwhelmingly 40 seats, Trump probably would not have gone along with seating the newly elected Congress people. And she fears that unless it's an overwhelming win in 2020, that Trump will not leave. Now that is bizarre.
Well, I think that's as bogus as the thought that he won't get convicted in the Senate. So what? nothing's guaranteed. You go, you have impeachment.
Well, here's the
hearings,
thing. Here's the thing about that.
I'm sorry?
Here's the thing about that. We have impeached 3 presidents, and we've never removed one. So no one gets removed. But people get impeached.
That's beside the point.
No, that is the point. That's what works for us. You know, they impeached Bill Clinton. He didn't get removed. They wrote articles of impeachment for Richard Nixon, and he resigned. So that was a good result, right? And then we had, forget which president we tried to impeach. And who was it?
Andrew Johnson was impeached, but
not removed. So, right. Let's do it.
You know, Randy, that's not the point. The point is, you want to bring information to the public.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just coming at it from the other side. I'm saying that works in our favor. That impeachment is a process to educate the American people, not necessarily a process that results in removal, because it never does. But you still get educated about what kind of criminal you got. Now, Bill Clinton, there was no underlying crime, so people thought, this is bullcrap. This is a consensual affair he lied about. I lie about stuff like that. I can feel his pain, right? I don't remember what Andrew Johnson was impeached for, but...
Well, they just hated him at the time. That's why he was impeached. But the other thing is, this is almost poetic justice. Turn the impeachment hearing into a reality show, because that's what it will be for most people.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this country needs to inform the less informed, who have to go out and earn a living, by the way.
Oh, no, I think you're right.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, Chris in Miami.
How you doing, Randy?
Hi, Chris.
I'm just chiming in. The Democrats, I think, are not approaching the whole Bill Barr situation procedurally in the best way. And let me explain. What's going to happen is this. If they move to hold him in contempt, Barr is going to probably file a petition for injunctive relief in the federal district court. And he's going to argue that he has good cause not to resist a subpoena pursuant to Rule 6 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, because it's secret, because the underlying evidence is secret. So what's going to happen is what happened in the Holder case. The court's going to find that there is good cause based on Rule 6. But what the Democrats need to do under existing legal precedent, they must open impeachment hearings, then petition the court. Under those circumstances, based on the case law, the court will find that there's just cause for disclosure of the underlying evidence. That's what they need to do.
They will do that. They will do that. Listen, of course, they will go to a court and they will argue that there's a prosecutorial exception to keeping secret grand jury testimony.
Yes, I mean, that's what Barr is going to argue.
No, I know what he's going to argue, but, obviously they will go to the court and they will ask a court to make available the 6E material, the grand jury material, so that Mueller can testify about it.
Yeah, exactly. But the problem is going to be is that the Democrats have not come out and said they're opening impeachment hearings. And under the case law, they have to show, that there is an ongoing impeachment.
That there's a prosecution, right? And then the prosecutorial exception kicks in.
But the problem is that Pelosi doesn't want to call it.
I understand. I know, but I think she's losing patience. I really do. I think she.
I hope so.
I do too. And here's just some breaking news for you, Chris, because you sound like you're an attorney.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, great. So Steve Mnuchin has just written a letter to Richard Neal, the chairman of the House Ways and Means, and said that it would be illegal for him to release Donald Trump's taxes.
Oh my! You know what? Now Mnuchin, they have just cause to find him in contempt, because under the plain meaning of the statute, there is no exception.
None.
He has to turn it over.
Yeah.
So he's in contempt. And right now we're seeing another impeachable offense in plain sight, because what Trump is doing with respect to his tax returns, that's impeachable.
Right.
I mean,
I'm saying, so this is why I keep on, emphasizing that we are in a constitutional crisis.
No, you're absolutely right. I've been listening to. You're absolutely. We've been in a crisis for a lot longer than these past few months.
Yes.
We've been in a crisis for over a year.
Yes.
Almost 2 years.
Yes.
I mean, it's a bad situation, and it is what it is. I mean, I'm just hoping that Mueller will get to testify and make it clear to the American public, because a third of the country is completely ignorant. They think that he left it up to Barr to decide.
Right.
That's not what the report said.
No.
He made it clear that his hands were tied.
And that he was punting to Congress, yes, and that it was Congress's job to go ahead and have an impeachment. That the only remedy for this felony president, for this lawless criminal president, was to have Congress impeach and the Senate to remove. And he then just washed his hands of it and said, there's nothing I can do because of this stupid OLC rule. All right, so I'm going to lay it out for you, all the evidence that I found. And, you need to indict him, and then you need to have a trial in the Senate, because I can't do it. That's what Mueller's position is.
And there is a basis to impeach him just on collusion. It may not be criminal consistency, but under the impeachment clause, a president can be removed for both criminal or non-criminal misconduct.
Yes.
That is malfeasance. And welcoming the help of a hostile foreign power as a presidential candidate, that is impeachable.
That's why when I get to the part in the report about the polling data, okay, and I see that Mueller knew that regular updates about internal polling data were being provided by Paul Manafort to Kilimnik for the ingestion by Oleg Deripaska and Vladimir Putin, and yet he still says, even in the light of this kind of collusion, this kind of handing over internal polling data, my hands are still tied because Manafort lied so much that I can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Meaning what he says in the report is, I don't know what they did with the polling data. And the reason I don't know what they did with the polling data is because Manafort lied so much. Oleg Deripaska is in Russia, and so is Konstantin Kilimnik. So I can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, exactly. The obstruction worked.
Right.
I mean, there was encrypted apps, emails were deleted, messages deleted. This is a classic case where obstruction actually worked.
Right.
And meanwhile, Trump is also participating in the obstruction.
Right. Right.
It's that criminality written all over it.
Right. And this is what is so frustrating, is that we know that. Those of us who cared to read the Mueller report, those of us who cared to understand that the Trump campaign provided Russia with internal polling data that specifically targeted Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and Michigan, and that the only reason why Mueller threw his hands up is because of this OLC decision and the fact that he wrote, one of the things he wrote, the investigation established that several individuals affiliated with the Trump campaign lied, and they lied to us and to Congress about their interactions with Russian-affiliated individuals and related matters. Those lies materially impaired the investigation of Russian election interference. That's everything. That's everything.
I agree. And the worst part about it is that this clown wins re-election, he's going to get away with all of it.
Never mind get away with it. He's going to double down, and America isn't going to be America anymore. I mean, people will be able to steal your house. They'll be able to steal your bank accounts. They'll be able to just steal from you. White-collar criminals will go to town. They will just go nuts. And America will just look like some banana republic, okay? That's all it will be. We'll have very rich, and everybody else will be poor. That is just the wet dream of the oligarchs. It's what they want, and I'm talking global oligarchs. It's not just Trump. Trump is part of a oligarchy, of a slouching toward Gomorrah, of a corporate cosmology. He's just he's the biggest globalist that ever came down the pike. But the fact that the law will be thrown out the window and we will become a nation of men. Men like Trump, men like Manafort, men like Bill Barr is so freaking. We're right there. We're right there, and it's now or never. We don't.
Yeah, listen. Pelosi doesn't want to open up the can of worms, but I think she's making a mistake because I think that if she opens up impeachment hearings, win, lose, or draw, when the American public hears Mueller testify, here's all the evidence come out in the public hearing. The Republicans, you're absolutely right, we can predict. If he passes articles of impeachment, the Democrats do in the House, McConnell is not going to hold an impeachment trial. Why? Because this record is so tainted that the Republicans are going to look terrible defending this man. And it's going to kill the Republicans at the polls in 2020.
Right, and that is why his next move is obviously an aggressive one, like war or some sort of operation where he becomes a wartime president. We're not allowed to criticize him anymore.
Well, I agree, but your predictions have to watch. If articles impeachment pass, we're not going to get an impeachment trial. He's not going to allow it to happen. He's going to pull what he did to Obama with the Supreme Court justice, can't recall it, with Merrick Garland.
Yeah.
He's going to do the same thing, but in the impeachment context.
Yeah.
Because I looked it up. There is no constitutional mandate that there must be an impeachment trial.
That's right. That's why I keep telling everybody he's not going to have a trial. I don't know why anybody.
You're absolutely right. When I heard you say that a couple weeks ago, oh my gosh, he's right. Because I looked it up myself. I researched it. Oh Lord, that's right.
All it says is that the Senate is the sole trier. It doesn't say the Senate must try, shall try, will try. Nothing like that.
Your analysis is sound. You're absolutely right.
Well, thank you.
That's exactly what.
What kind of law do you practice? What kind of law?
I do civil litigation. I do a lot of insurance litigation and public work.
Oh, you're a shark, man. Okay, I'm scared of you now. All right, thank you for everything. Thank you so much,
no
Chris.
problem.
Okay,
All right,
bye. Oh yeah, well, civil litigation, insurance lawyers. Oh, I get chills. They are, they're mean. That's what they are. All right, Elton in Buffalo.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
Hi. First-time caller.
Oh, wow. Good way to end.
Well, and I just wanted to ask a quick question.
Go ahead.
Does impeachment and acquittal by the House and acquittal by the Senate constitute double jeopardy?
No.
And make it impossible to hold Trump criminally liable?
No. As a matter of fact, Mueller actually addresses this in the Mueller report and says that even if we impeached him, it wouldn't solve the criminal problem of having a felonious person in the White House. He says, impeachment would settle, whether or not he was indicted, but it wouldn't settle any, and even if we removed him, Mueller says, the criminal part of what he did still remains to be litigated, still remains to be addressed in a court of law. So, no, it's not a double jeopardy situation. And just remember the House, if the House does move toward impeachment, they will impeach him. But there won't be a trial.